So I thought I'd just record what I'm going to do today. I've got a pretty big day. I'll be baking sourdough or macarons and a 2-tier mud cake, walking you through each step with recipes on the screen. I'll show you how I build and decorate the cake and add macarons as decorations and add the drip, and how I manage to bake the sourdough in between everything. So my starter has still got an hour to go, I reckon. And then in half an hour, I'll take the ingredients from the back here, order at least the dough, and then the last part I will do the macarons. Now for the mix, I'm just doing 6 loaves. I will put on the screen the actual recipes. So I've cut all the silicone papers out and I put those at the bottom of the tin because that's where it sticks when you make the mud cake. So I'm going to do the 8-inch tins first. I've got the oven ready to go. On my stone, I've added the wire, so I don't want to bake this tin directly on the stone, so you give it a bit of a gap, it won't burn on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is do the wet ingredients first. 345 milk and 150 mils of vegetable oil, and add 3 eggs. I want to put 3 teaspoons of vanilla essence. .600 sugar. Now you want an all-purpose flour. You don't want to use bread flour, obviously, because you want a soft crumb. So 405, and I'm going to sieve it so it's more fine. I am going to put 100 grams of Hershey's cocoa powder. I want 1.5 teaspoons of salt. So I want 2 teaspoons of the baking powder, 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Yeah. Now I'm going to mix this for 2 minutes. And now I'm going to put it on speed 2 and just mix that for a minute or so. Alright, so that's finished. Now we're going to add 1 cup of boiling water. So. And I'm not going to mix it straight away. I don't want to burn myself. First I'll just kind of gradually mix it in. I'll fold it in. And then I'll put it back in the mixer, just on really slow. Now, pull this out. So now I'm just folding it in with the spatula, like so. Each one of these tins is about 680. So I'm going to go, and this one will be 682. Like so now we've got all 3. So this is check this temperature. Yep, that's good. I'm now gonna just probably drop it a little bit, 170. Now I'm gonna put all 3 8-inch sponges in the oven, and I'll bake that for half an hour. So I'll set a timer for 30 minutes. Could take 35. So bake that, and I'm going to start weighing up the 10-inch. So now I'm going to do the 10-inch tins, and I'll put the recipe for the 3 10-inch tins on the screen. So I'll weigh that up. And just to finish it off. Fold it like I did last time. Make sure there's no dry spots. I'm going to split this mix into 3 for the 3 tins. Now I'm going to weigh the total of the bowl, and it is 4.1 kilo. So 4.1 kilo. I know the bowl itself weighs 1200. So that means the mix is 2.9 kilo. Divide that by 3, and we need 966 per tin. Alright, so it's been half an hour. I'm going to test it by touching the top. Yeah, it's spongy. That's good. So I'll pour it out a little bit earlier than I wanted. Alright. I'm going to pour these out, put them on the table. Now I've got my 10 inches. I'm going to put these in. Alright, so in 35 minutes, I will pour them out and see how they look. So they've cooled down. What I'm going to do is just I'm going to check the 10 inches. It's been about 35. Oh, beautiful. The beauty about baking, like I said before, on these stone ovens is that because you've got the even heat from the stone, you don't have to worry about putting, like sometimes when I bake the 10 or 12 inch, I have to put like a metal rod in the middle to cook the middle. But because you've got that even heat from the stone, bottom heat, it bakes it perfect. So beautiful. I'll let that cool down. So I've just done the 10 inch, but this is now, well, that's getting close. So I'm going to order this mix. So I'm going to put all the ingredients in the mixer and tip all of it, except for a little bit. Tip half the flour in. On first speed. Let it mix until there's no dry spots. So I'm going to mix this until there's no dry spots and let it auto release until I have my starter. It may look a bit dry, but trust me, once the water starts absorbing, it will get really, really wet. That's it. So I'll cover that up and let that rest until I put the starter. So this is going to be for my ganache. This is milk chocolate. Now I'm going to stick this in one of my red tubs because it's got a lid, and let it set. I might actually start putting this together. Let's see how the ganache is looking. Still a bit runny. So I need this to thicken up before I put it on the cake. Otherwise it's just gonna squash, because this is a pretty heavy cake. I'm actually using 2 12-inch boards that I will use back to back. So it gives it more strength. And then the middle top tier will be the 8-inch. So this is ready, starting to collapse. So now I'm going to add it to my flour that's been auto releasing for about 45 minutes. and I'll mix that in for about 4 minutes. Alright, so that's enough. I'm going to let that water release for another half an hour before adding the salt. So to stick the sponge to the board, I put a bit of ganache on like so. And this will really just stick it to the board so it's not going to move. And let's get this. We want it in the middle. Okay. So. Now for the 8-inch tin, what I'm going to do is stack it inside the tin. I usually do this on the 10-inch as well. This makes it easier to straighten it up. And then I'll stick that on top. Push down. Like so. And then I'll put on the final layer. So now I've got both of the cakes sitting in here, setting. I should have left that in the 10-inch tin too, but it's alright, it's pretty straight. I'm gonna let this set before putting on the first coat, which will go underneath the buttercream. So now I'm gonna add the salt. Put a little bit at a time. And I'll just put it up a little bit more. And I just want to mix that for like 2 minutes or so. And then I'll put it in the tub. So now I'm going to put this in the prover at 25 degrees. I've got a video on my channel about how I built this. And I've got my aliquot jar. I've got another video about this too. So this should take 5.5 hours. I want this to prove to 50%. So in 5.5 hours, I'll do some stretch and folds every half an hour, maybe 3 or so. And then I'll put that in the Banneton and put it in the fridge for tomorrow to bake. Now for this 8-inch, I just want to smooth out the top of it, because that's got too much of a curve. It's not going to be flat enough. So, nice. I'm going to create a base to stick it to. This 8 inch is actually going to cover the whole board, so we can go to the edge. And I'll take the paper off. I've done that before, where I've put paper on the cake. So now they've got the first coat of the chocolate, the ganache. I'll leave these for at least an hour to really set before putting the buttercream on. So I'm going to do a stretch and fold, first one. I'll do a dough temp check. .25, which is beautiful. And I'll put this back in the trimmer. I'll probably do another stretch and fold in about 45 minutes. So while this cake is hardening up, before I put the buttercream on, I'm going to start the macarons. I've got a video on my channel about how to make them, but I'll put the recipe on the screen too. Egg water. I'm going to mix this until stiff peaks. Caster sugar that I'm just going to add bit by bit. A little bit to go. Speed 8 until stiff peaks. Add a bit of blue if the cake's going to be blue. So I want it to be stiff, and that's not a stiff peak. Alright, we'll mix for a few more minutes. Yeah, it's much better. Now I'm going to add the almond and the icing sugar. I'm going to switch to the paddle and mix it on speed 1 for just a few seconds. And then I'm going to finish it by hand. Now I'm going to transfer the mix to my bowl, and I'm going to fold to get the lava effect. Like I said, I've got a video on my channel that explains how I do my macarons. Keep going until it comes off the spatula. You know, really nice like lava effect. No, so keep going. That's it. That's how I want it. So I'm going to do another stretch and fold. This is almost at the end. And that'll be it for about 2 hours, 3 hours maybe for that. I'm going to pipe. Then I'll tap the tray, knock all the air out. Now at 140 for about 13-14 minutes. I will bake them in here on the wire so it's not touching the stone. I will check that in about 10 minutes, see how they're going. About halfway through the bake. Looking really good. Also, another trick I have, if you have this oven, the RM2020, open the damper halfway through the bake. It will release some of the heat that's not needed and it will stop them from cracking. So yeah, I like to open up that and you can get a shot in there too. So I'll just fill the tops. Tops don't move, they're stiff, means they're ready to be pulled out. That's how you know if a macaron's baked. When if it wiggles, they're not baked. If they're stiff, they're baked. Alright. And I'll let those cool down. So we've got the 10-inch and the 8-inch with the chocolate coating. So now I'm going to do the buttercream, which I have in my bowl, ready to go. I will soften up this first. Unlike the Swiss meringue, we use egg white. This is the American version, we use ice and sugar. The macarons are cooling down and the sourdough is still proving. So I want to try and get these coated with the buttercream. I'm going to soften up the butter. And now, on low speed, I will start adding the icing sugar. About halfway through, I will add 2 teaspoons of vanilla essence. Now I want to add some blue. I want this to match the macarons, so now I'm going to start icing the cake. Just the blue layer. So just before I stack this cake, I'm going to fill the macarons. This is now on about 40%. So I'll shake the sourdough and let it sit on the bench for half an hour before we put it in the Banneton. So I'll get that done now. And then I'm going to stack the cake. Alright, that's that, and I'll leave that there for half an hour. Alright, so I'm going to put the straws in to balance the top tier, which is an 8-inch. This is pretty flat, so that's good. Let me just see what the highest point of the cake is. So now I'm just gonna put buttercream over the holes, and it will help that stick on too. Okay, so I've put the cake in the fridge, and I'm going to drip it. But first, I'm going to shape these sourdough. And put them in the fridge. So now I'm just going to pair up these macarons, and I will ice them. Put the ganache in them. These are going to be going on the cake. So this is a milk chocolate ganache. I will just piece them together, like so. And I'll put them in the fridge so that they can set. So I'm going to put this in the fridge, let them set. I took out the shelves because I almost took out the cake before with the bloody shelf, but it's all good. Okay, let that set. So it turned out alright. It's for a friend. The drip's not too bad. The American cream, the buttercream, is a bit harder to smooth than the Swiss meringue. You still get, it's very hard to make it perfect. But overall, I like it. Macarons could have been a bit darker, but it's very hard to match macarons and cake together. So now it's in the box. So now I'm gonna bake them off. The oven's on 250. It's only 6, so I'm gonna put 3 per board. And I'm gonna flour. Now I'm gonna score. Now I'm going to load up the oven. So I've dropped the temperature down to 220 just after I loaded it. And for 25 minutes, we'll let this bake with steam. And after 25 minutes, we'll release the steam by opening this and the door. Just eating one of these macarons while I wait. It's so addictive. Okay, so it's been 25 minutes. Got a bit of steam coming out. Let's have a look. They're looking good. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the damper and put this back up to 240 and bake this for another 15 minutes. So we're at the end of the bake. We are baking them a bit darker because that's how they want it today. So yeah, let me pull these out. That's it. The end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's just check the cake. I did put the cake in the box. The bread is cooling down. Well, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave a comment below and subscribe if you want to see any future content.